So let's start with wrist motion. And I also ask you to look through it just to understand yourself at your best through reading the textbook and watching the videos about the concept of two-dimensional and three-dimensional movement. So I'm gonna ask some questions as well, and obviously if you have questions, you're welcome to ask them as well. How do you execute two-dimensional movement? What do you do? What are important to remember when you make that wrist movement right or left? I would say there may be 2 or 3 main principles there.
Well, the first principle is to keep your hand relaxed. The second principle...
That's so important.
The second, I think, it's if you do this movement, do this horizontal, not diagonal. So it must be 2D.
Okay, that's true. Yes, yes. What else?
And next, maybe it...
What about elbow?
Elbow, it's about elbow. Now we're talking about wrists.
Yes, exactly. And we will talk about in the next lesson about elbow and intonation, how to move elbow, but for now, are we moving elbow or not?
When we stay in the current position, our elbow stays in place.
Mm-hmm.
So,
so why is that? Why do we need to learn? Why do we need to consciously separate wrist from elbow, which usually we don't do, at least on this stage?
I think that's because these movements have their specific goal. Mm-hmm. When we do elbow, it's nothing to do with sound imagination. It's more like with changing your position around in front of the piano, mm-hmm. so to reach other octaves. Mm-hmm. But when we do these wrist movements, we represent by this movement the sound movement. Represent by this movement the sound movement. And this sound movement, by the way, not so easy to grasp for me at the first time.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
But I think I got it. Finally, I found it.
Yes, and hopefully you will clarify even more the more we go today. But I think I would like to mention that the reason why we want to keep our elbow in place in the first time we making exercise with the wrist, is to make sure that we're not moving our elbow instead of
wrist.
Because it's so common. Like most of the time we have problems and tension in the wrist because our wrist is not really breathing. Our wrist is not taught how to move and how to feel and how to have this inner motion.
Yeah.
So it's important to make sure that when you learn in the first time you learn this horizontal left-right movement, you're not doing it with your elbow, which basically your wrist, yeah, it is moving, but actually it's not. It's because your elbow moving, to feel that.
But I think at the same time, with this moment, there is one danger, I think. Mm-hmm. When we just consciously try to fix our elbow, mm-hmm. we may freeze. So we may just put the elbow in place, but constantly we should remember that we still should be moving inside. So it's not just freezed, it's just resting in its position, and we just do the movement of the wrist, but without I just wanted to mention it because it was my mistakes in the early stages when I went through your system. So, and I think it's important to notice about this.
It is very important, and in fact that state what we're talking about, it should last for maybe 1 day. To just let yourself to feel the difference between wrist and elbow. You should not in any way to just like continue that way. But with this exercise, what we also learn not to move elbow and to move elbow. Because again,
to control it.
Exactly, because it's just the sensation of not moving elbow, staying in the same place. Because sometimes if you move elbow there, it will bring so much messiness and inaccuracy to your playing, and it will actually might create even more tension. And knowing where you move elbow fast and with big amplitude, which we'll talk about next lesson. So this differentiation in feelings, like you said, to be able to control the movement, and you need to learn how to not to move as well.
This is gradually accumulating more awareness of your body. So you
exactly.
can move.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Right. Okay, so now maybe you can just tell me, why do we need 2D motion? Why do we start with 2D wrist motion?
I think it's just scaffold for the next 3D motion.
Okay, so that will basically help us to understand 3D motion better. What else do we need it for? What does it represent?
2D motion represents sound movement.
Exactly. So we're moving. We learn how to move the wrist, not just mechanically, but to learn how to use it to express the sound imagination that we're going to have in the future. The sound movement, exactly. Yeah, you know. Good. Now, technical question. Very boring one. So how to identify, how to choose the direction of the note?
I like this question. Rather, it's not boring. It's because I think I will get the A+ with this.
Good.
Well, when we see the note that is going upper than previous note, so the sound movement on this note that it goes upper is going to be to the right. So when am I right? Am I right? 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 Am I right?
Maybe you left.
So when the melody goes down, no, I'm not right. I'm left. We're talking about difference.
Maybe you can try
topic.
one more time. Maybe
Okay,
I
thank you.
understood. Maybe I understood it wrongly. Say it again.
Okay, so
For example,
let's say we have let's say for example we have 3 notes: C, D, and E.
Okay.
C, D, and E, and after that we have once again D.
Okay.
So the melody C, D. Yeah. So the first note, we can choose direction whatever we want, left or right. Okay.
This is true. Well done.
Second note must be right because it's higher than previous note.
Ah. Okay. So now you're right. So you look at the note and you compare that note with the previous note, and that determines the direction of the note. Okay.
Yeah, and the E is the right
because
right
it's
again, because
higher than the previous note.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the D is to the left because it's
the D is to the left. Yeah.
That's
so
correct.
It's very easy to grasp. I think it's very
good.
Easy
but
concept.
It's important to have a very concrete rule because sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not easy.
Just
yes. What if you have the same note? What if you have
the same note? The same note. If the first note was to one direction, maybe to the right, and the next notes would be also to that
so
direction.
You keep the same direction.
Keep the same direction.
Well done.
And
so what about the intervals? If you play,
and in intervals we choose the leading voice, so it may be not the upper voice, it may be the sum of the middle voices,
something that you might choose to voice in the future.
Yeah, so we just choose the sound movement of that note that is part of the melody of voicing. So it's not always it's the upper voice. It may be the middle voice. I think.
And sometimes In many cases, it's very simple because the chord, let's say there are 4 notes and 3 of them kind of stay in the same place and just one voice is moving. So you're probably going to choose that to project in the future, to voice it. And so you will choose a direction by that moving voice in the chord. You can imagine what I'm talking about, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Very good. And you already gave me example because I was about to test you with the score, but I think you got it. So let's go to 3D motion. Let's just jump into why do we need 3D motion? Why we cannot continue with 2D motion? So 3D motion is when we start involving vertical movement, not just horizontal but also vertical.
Yeah. Well, I think it's referred to your other concept of sound texture.
True.
This 3D moments.
True.
And also it is referred to expressing the sound movement through weight.
Very
Through
good.
weight of your hands.
Well done.
And it provides more natural feeling when you but we should always remember that when we do this only in slow tempo, because when we play fast we just cannot do this, right?
You're leading
right,
now to exactly. You're leading now to my next question. So yes, good. So to confirm what you said, why do we need to engage in our vertical movement is because later when we're going to imagine the notes not just in the color of instruments, violin or cello, which is pretty much horizontal, but more in the texture of water, which gives this depth. So we imagine sound going a little bit down first and then to the right, to the left. So again, if you conceive that sound, you need to mirror that sound with the motion of your wrist, yes? And the same with arm weight. Obviously, arm weight expands. Instead of that playing, we're going in depth. So again, you need the same movement that would reflect that. Good. So the next question, let's go to that, what you started. So how, in 3 steps, how this amplitude of rolls and swings would change according to the tempo, maybe?
It's flattened.
Exactly. So when we play very slow, the rolls and the swings should be in a very
It's wide. It's bigger.
bigger. Right.
And
So when we go faster, flattened. Now tell me exactly in which way. Okay. So instead of circle motion becomes more elliptical. Instead of good big swing, it becomes more like a content smile, right? Okay, yes.
Yeah.
All right, but what do you need to notice with your wrist relating to the keyboard? Remember, it's very important. So when we're gonna, this is in slow tempo, the wrist go this way. When we go faster, the wrist should go
not lower than the surface.
than the
of
surface
the
of the keys. Yes, yes, yes. And this is, the elliptical should be here rather than there. Very good.
When we play very, very fast, we can not even notice that some movements is going
Exactly.
there.
So that actually, it's not only even fast. When we get the final result with everything that we're going to include, when we, let's say, perform, even if I play slow music, maybe you notice that I'm not moving my hand, that much. It's just because all these external movements in the beginning, we're uploading to our muscle memory. So eventually, we can, even without that external movement, feel that inner motions, what you said in Russia before, feel that internal motion inside you. We feel that inner motion in those macro movements in our wrist. And so that let our wrist feel flexible and breathing and inhale and exhale, all of that. Good. Now let's just go, this important part. So how do you find the 3-dimensional movement in the score? Where do you make rolls?
When we do this rolls, when we go to the sequence in one direction,
Good.
yes. So
and the swings opposite direction.
it's just
right.
opposites. Yeah.
Good. Now the second question, in which direction do we start the roll? And this is where 2D motion helps. So if that C was previously to the right, and then you go to D to the right, that means you start your roll, obviously down always, but
So if
with
we-
movement to the right.
If we have this clock image, so when we
From
go to the
9 to
right, we do
3.
counterclockwise movement from 9 to 6 to 3, and when we go left, we do this motion from 3 to 6 to 9 on this clock
Right,
image.
and when you say when we go left, it's not always when we go left, it's when the movement of the note
Is on the left.
is to the left according to two-dimensional movement. This is a very important thing to remember because sometimes students get confused. They might play to re mi, but they will make re mi instead of re mi.
Yeah, I know this
So
problem.
it's
My
connection
student
important.
did this too.
All right. So the rolls is when the same direction swings contra motion, and the direction to which we start the roll determined by the direction of the 2D motion. Okay. Oh, good. Well done. Last question about wrist motion. So in both two-dimensional and three-dimensional movement, when we are playing intervals or chords, is there a similar rule?
To let go one of the note. Yeah, it's about that. No.
Or better say to hold on only to one of the notes. Let's say you have a chord and you will hold on to the note that you're gonna voice. That is gonna be part of your melody.
Oh, only the note you're gonna voice. So it's important.
Exactly.
Not just the. So if it's the bottom note, it's only. Well, if we do do mi, for example, and the bottom note I want to voice, and the movement is to the right, so my first finger stays hold on the C,
Exactly.
and I can release the E. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, 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 yes. And the same with chords. So out of 4 notes, you would just hold on to one. Now
we
tell
can
me-
use pedal.
That's the whole point, of course. Now, what is behind this? Why do we need to do that?
To avoid compulsive tension, I believe, maybe.
Okay, so
And to easy the voicing, to make it easier. maybe.
it is, it's true. But what does it exactly do? What does it exactly do is that when you let go of the note, let's say, for example, you're playing an octave. Good example. You're playing an octave, and I just put it down. So
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah. So you're playing the octave here, and if you're gonna hold on, there is not much space for your wrist to move. Where if you let go, and what is important also, you close your hand right away, that let your hand be in a closed position. And you already know about positions because you will study on your own. The whole point is that we learn how to play with closed hands, never keep it in an open state, all right? So that helps. Whether we play an interval, whether we play chords, we close the hand and we move the wrist instead of. Helps me to play Rachmaninoff. Oh my god. Without this technique.
Why then? Why then? Very often in classrooms, we students are told to hold on all the notes.
Yeah, this is something that I would like to ask my teachers as well. And I would like to tell them, you ruined my hands by telling me that. So yeah, no, you should not, please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will stick to this point.
All right. So this is good. So your homework, let me give you your homework. So it's going to be wrist motion practice. So you want to follow that video. It's a page 34. And you want to follow the video and practice together with me those 4 bars initially. And when you learn and you repeat every step after me, then you're going to continue with other 4 bars. Remember, we only practice 4 bars at a time. And I believe with number 1 in Schaefer. So what is important to mention here is that you need to play very slow, 1 note a second. Also another thing, which also nice to cover, that when we introduce 3D motion, actually here you can allow your elbow to move a little bit more freely. Yes, that's important to remember. And when you are going to have long notes, okay, well, I say 1 note a minute, but it's like sometimes you will have a longer note, you know, let's say you have a whole note in the right hand and half notes in the left hand. So your right hand is waiting, yes? So the question arises usually, what do you do on that half note? So do you wait, when do you make the roll, right? And so what is important, again, I'll put it here, is that let's say you're playing this C, and you're waiting, and your next note is D, and you're gonna connect it with the roll. So you need to make the roll right before you're gonna play the D. So this is the wrong way to do this, and just wait. So you need to play it, and then make a roll and play D. Make a roll and play E.
No.
Yes, okay. So now we're going to.
But when we wait this note, our wrist is stopped, or what? Or
So what
just
I
we
suggest-
just slower.
What I suggest sometimes, usually when you approach the note, it stops. But for students who are trying to still overcome stiffness in the wrist, they find it that when they wait, they might start accumulating tension in the wrist without any movement. In this case, what I suggest is, like I said, in the example when the right hand the whole note, left hand the half a note, when you're going to play that second half note in the left hand, make that ghost roll in your right hand. So instead of da da, you go da da. Just continue doing that roll even though you're not playing. That helps initially, and I think I also showed it in the video, but that was shot like 2 years ago, so I don't really remember, but just to say. So now I would like to, now we discuss everything, you got your homework, now I would like to check. So we're gonna play you can play anything you want, it doesn't matter what you play. All I want is that you show me how you would play with 2D and 3D. If you want, you can open Schaefer and just jump right there. If you need something to play by score, or you can just play anything you want on the keyboard.
Are we doing 2D motion or 3D motion?
I would like to just check 2D first. So remember why I chose Schaefer, that everything here you play in one position, so it's perfect for learning how to not move elbow in 2D motion.
Okay.
Show me the 3D motion, please. I love it. Show me the left hand. This is so very good. Well done. So. Okay, so thank God you're a good student, so you don't have the problems with fixation in your hands when you play, but also, you know, you had your history and you worked on that, so you're a very good example when that's how it's supposed to look. Well done. Relaxed hands, gentle touch. Two-dimensional movement was correct. I love the swing approach with 2D. When you first in country motion, you press the key and then you move your wrist.
Yeah, I found this more easier to do.
I give 5 for you, A+, well done for everything. Prepared so much,
thank
just
you.
in one day, well done. So, next lesson, whenever it's going to be tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, when you're ready, I'm going to obviously check wrist motion practice, and we will start a topic about inner musical ear, sound imagination, timbre, and the polyphonic ear. So we'll touch on that next time.